Good evening and welcome to another episode of Unstoppable Overcomers. I just want to give a shout out to our first sponsor of today's show, which is Cast Magic. For all you coaches out there or podcasters, Cast Magic is the ultimate tool that you need in your toolbox to help you save at least 10 to 15 hours a week. So with that, go over to Cast, the link that I have in the show notes here and in the comments, and get your free trial today. With that, I'm bringing to the stage hosts Kimberly Genovese and our special guest, Kelly Adams. Welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you. It's great to be here. And so, everyone, as you know, this show is usually hosted by Dorothy, and I am the roving reporter. And this week on this show, Dorothy is dealing with some eye issues and her eye is draining. So she asked me to take the lead for her tonight. So for all of those of you in the audience, please, rally around and bring your prayers together so that I can maybe even remotely come close to filling Dorothy's shoes tonight. So with that in play, everyone, it's great to be here tonight. It's truly, and I'm Kelly, I'm already getting emotional about the show tonight because I'm like, geez, what a privilege that I get to do the show tonight with you. So real quick, Kel, I'm going to just sit back and let me share with everyone who you are because you're amazing. It's like, wow, your bio is off the charts. So everyone, this is Kelly Lynn Adams. She's an award-winning certified trauma-informed executive, leadership, life, and business coach. She's been doing that since 2009. She's also an international speaker, a mental health advocate, and the creator of the Perfectly Imperfect podcast, listened to globally, which is freaking awesome. Thank you, Kelly, for being here tonight. She's also the founder of the Inner Circle community and has helped thousands of high-achieving leaders manage their mindset, maximize their time, and monetize themselves inside their businesses. Kelly has spent over 18 plus years. So, Cal, I got to know, what's 18 plus? Is it 18.1 month or what? What do we got?
More like over 20.
There we go. I had a feeling. And so then I'm going to give you the same question so many people ask me. So what that means you started when you were like 1 year old? Because you
like 5.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. Perfect. So Kelly's spent over 20 plus years in the corporate America, working for some of the top retail and fashion brands in the world, like Gucci, DKNY Jeans, Kenneth Cole, and Bed Bath & Beyond. She's worked with individuals through one-on-one private coaching in her signature group program called Shatter Your Own Glass Ceilings. And she speaks for brands and organizations and teams globally, which include Kate Spade and the NBA, Playboy. Oh my God, there's like so many. I don't think an hour is going to be enough. But anyway, the New York Times and NASDAQ, just to name a few. This is amazing. She is Success Magazine's 125 nominated personal development leader, entrepreneurial magazine contributor. Did I get that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. And has been sought out by the media and featured in Forbes.com, Thrive Global, Huffington Post, The Good Men Project, Avon.com, and affiliates of CBS, Fox, and ABC. Kelly helps people to redefine success, love this, through shifting and reprogramming their thoughts, increasing their conviction and wealth, stepping into their power, and supersizing their self-love. Kelly is trained in and uses different modalities and methodologies within her coaching like neuroscience, NLP, IFS, emotional intelligence, somatic release techniques, and cognitive behavioral techniques. And I love it. Dorothy, by the way, for y'all, Dorothy is here. Just so y'all know, Dorothy is in the house. She is running the backside. So as you can see, you can get more information on Kelly through her website at kellylynadams.com. Kelly, what a privilege to get to be with you tonight.
Oh my gosh, Kimberly, what a privilege it is to be here. And like that, oh my gosh, you read it so beautifully. I'm like, okay, come on. That's a lot of stuff.
Well, it's all true, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. So I'm really enjoying this on multiple levels because I have similar backgrounds. A lot of these things that you're involved in, I have background in as well, except for IFS. I'm very curious. What is IFS?
Yeah, it stands for internal family systems. So it's parts work. So if you
Beautiful.
think of, we all have different parts where we play. So a part could be jealousy, happiness, right? So we all have these parts that show their heads, and it's like, okay, what part is playing out in this scenario? And sometimes the part is not very useful in a situation that we're dealing with or working through. So it can go, in what we call like the basement or the living room. And it's just to identify that no parts are good or bad, right?
Right.
Shame or jealousy or envy, like nothing's really labeled good and bad. It's just, it is what it is. So really not to judge ourselves or shame ourselves because we're human beings on this earth. So it's very powerful work.
That's really beautiful. I'm very excited to hear more about that. And it's super fun to get to be like, if there was ever a night that Dorothy was going to, choose to pull me up from the bench, so to speak. This is so great because this is really my world. And so I really love to hear what had you make that switch from the corporate world into the, self-employed business world.
Yeah, so I was always looking and wanting for something. I mean, even as a little girl, I was selling lemonade on, lemonade stands. I always had this initial drive. And so I started on Wall Street, and then I spent 20 plus years in corporate America. And I knew I didn't want to be in corporate for the rest of my life. I was like, oh, there's something here, but I didn't know what it was. And I thought it was like, do I just start a brick and mortar? Do I go into real estate? I just didn't know. So actually my first business was in network marketing. So I sold skincare, home parties, loved it. And I literally felt like I got an MBA in business in the network marketing industry. Yeah. And I was coaching women and I was speaking and I was training. And actually one of my best clients was like, you'd be a great coach. And this was back in 2009. And I'm like, what do you mean, like a basketball coach? Like, I don't want to be a basketball, like, I don't know what that is. Like, she's like, no, like a life and business coach. I'm like, what the heck is that? And at that time there was executive coaching, but the coaching industry wasn't as big as it is now and well known. And so I was like, what is that? And so she told me about it. And then I did my due diligence. I actually found a school to get certified. And the minute I got registered, I was like, this is it. Oh my gosh, this is it. Like how to learn about people and transform. And I was going through my own, right? It was a personal development course. And then I've always had coaches and I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. So I, slowly but surely stopped kind of the network marketing. Like I basically, my team kind of went past me, and that was okay. I was actually also giving some of my clients, to my teammates. And I was like, okay, this is the coaching thing. So I was building, because I couldn't do the coaching and the network marketing and do a full-time job. And at that time I was literally climbing the corporate ladder. So it wasn't a basic like 9 to 5. It was like, 7 a.m. till midnight. So yeah, so I was like, this is it, coaching and speaking. This is what I'm doing. And I sent an email out to like all my family and friends. I BCC'd everyone. I didn't even do like a Facebook post or anything. And I was like, this is what I'm doing. Now I'm a coach and I want to coach 50 people for free. And whoever wants to be coached for free by me, I have 50 spots. I'm not charging. And I did. I got 50 people for free. Halfway through, I was like, I should be charging. And it was great because it built my confidence, because I was just learning coaching. I was just getting in the game. So it built my confidence. It built my, okay, what am I coaching on? I knew I didn't want to coach around certain topics. And so I was like, this is it. And so I loved, and the stories I heard, the stories I still hear. So I
want to share some? You want to share some? Share some of the good ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some I can't. But everything from, you name it, I've heard it all. From really like the heavy stuff. And that's why I leaned into being trauma informed, because I was coaching these people around like happy things or finding more fulfillment and balance and all the, fun things. And then people would actually bring certain situations into the coaching container and the sessions. And I'm like I didn't really know where to go. I mean, it's always like you just keep asking questions and you acknowledge and you listen and use certain other different, things. But I was like, holy heck, like some of these things like, oh, my child, is starting to cut themselves, or, really have, suicidal ideation thoughts. So I was like, I didn't really know kind of where to go with all that. I mean, I was holding it, but I was like, I want to really get trauma informed and dive deeper into this work. And now, so I feel like I can support my clients even more. And I'm a constant learner anyway. So I'm constantly learning and growing and evolving myself.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, and I'm not going to step over my ask. So, something, can you for the audience, right? So they can really get their hands right. So I love everything you shared. I personally know a lot. God's put me on the same mission as you, right? Inside of creating self-love and possibility and, success and wealth. And I personally refer to health as wealth.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you're wealthy, you're healthy, and, obviously, if you're wealthy and unhealthy, then something's off. Right. But to the point, right. I'm always working for wealthy health versus just health. Right.
Yeah.
So I get it. And I would love for the audience to really get a sense of, and, keep names out of it. Right. Kind of a thing. But like, give us some examples of people you've been able to, take them, for example, from, having situations where they have family members or they themselves. And especially the suicide conversation, because that's something that Dorothy and I are very passionate about. And we know the show touches a lot of people that, are dealing with whether it's suicide or homicidal tendencies, right? As humans, moment for moment, we all lean towards one or the other, and it is a key on our piano that we are capable of playing. So, just share. I mean, maybe share a trauma one, maybe share, one that's not a trauma one, and then maybe share your favorite one.
Yeah. Oh, there's, I have a lot of favorites that always keeps me on my toes. I'm always, and that's the best thing about coaching. It makes you keep, curious. You stay curious of what is it? Because this is what I like to say. And this kind of goes into the stories is everyone is walking around, pretend like they have a pair of sunglasses on or a pair of glasses with different lenses. And those different lenses are your perspective, my perspective, and how are our perspectives shaped and created from when we were 0 to 14 or 18 years old. It's the environments we're in. It's the anything that we consumed, whether it was in our control or not. Anything that was spoken to, if we were bullied, if we were abused in any way. And so I have a lot of clients, right, that have those situations. So for example, we want to get really deep. Like I've definitely coached people that were molested, that were bullied, and very much so that it kind of leaks into who they're being in a sense of, right, imposter syndrome, or showing up really confidently, or thinking that there's something wrong with them, or that like they're broken in some way. And the thing is no one's broken, right? No one's needs fixing. You don't go to a coach or a therapist for fixing. It's realizing, okay, this is the things that happened to me, or really for me, is really, that's the journey. But now it's our, as adults, radical responsibility to really like unlearn some of that and really create new neural pathways and new ways of being, to be like, no, I'm not listening to what this perspective is that maybe is like in my cellular, body and at a cellular level. And so, yeah, I mean, there was definitely a client of mine that, she was very much like molested, and it was really, high executive and really impeding on like how she was showing up even. And it's like, but you got to, right? Because a lot of this is like successful people too. It's things that people you wouldn't even think of, or because we don't know what people are dealing with, or quote unquote, what they may be struggling with. So it's always having compassion, because from the outside looking in, you may never know it. And that's the thing. It's like, okay, what's really going on in someone's head and in their mind, even if they put like these masks on. I was the queen of masks, in corporate America. I had to, be a certain way and sell people and make them, come to my, corner of the room and, be charismatic and all the things. And so when there's a lot of that going on, because, for me, I was like, oh, I have to perform as a child. I was in dance class. I was doing so it serves. And that's the thing with IFS. It's like these parts serve, right? These parts, even the parts that maybe, one of my clients, like she was surviving and it got her to a certain level of success. Sure. Mm-hmm. So yes, is that part really serving? It serves. But also it doesn't serve in the point where, okay, it's holding her back from really being like, you are a love, really, in the purest form. And so what I told her is like, think of yourself as like the 2-year-old child, right? Even, for example, when a 2-year-old starts to walk, they're not, they don't fall down and they're like, oh, why would I even get up again? Like, are my legs too fat? Is my stomach too fat? Is like, oh, here, I can't walk. Like, they're not having any of that conversation because they're not quote unquote programmed, but they're just like, and their conscious mind, right, isn't fully developed, but it's like, no, they just get up, they do it again, they get up, they do it again. And they're so full of joy, right? Because they're just light, there's love. So what I explained to her is like, you are the 2-year-old, right? So it's really connecting back to that essence of being like, you're unstoppable. Right. So we get to learn that. And that also gets to be a new pattern and way of being that the client or you get to take on, because sometimes these patterns are so engraved, or our beliefs are so engraved. And the trauma is also so engraved that sometimes a lot of my clients also work with like therapists and psychotherapists at certain levels, because it's, it's like, well, I'm not certified to go like that deep, right? So I always say like, help yourself in certain situations, because some of the stuff is really, really deep.
That's great. Yeah. And so Kelly, how long does it usually take someone, to get a hold of, access what is driving them, and then for you to be able to coach them through and get to the other side and create something powerful, break that glass ceiling?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it depends on the person. And honestly, change can happen very quickly, right? Depending on what it is. Mm-hmm. And it just depends, right? Like you say, if you want to see yourself in a different way, it's like, well, you can make that decision right away. You deciding you want to show up differently and you want to become someone different or more of who you originally are. Like, that's just a decision and a choice. And what I will say, it's kind of like working out, right? It's, you get to also like keep deciding and keep choosing on a daily basis, because you and I both know, and everyone watching and listening here all know, that we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. So there is those thoughts that are kind of like the weeds that are like, oh, that thought doesn't really serve right now, actually. Like, is this useful? Nope, it's not. So we want to make sure that anytime those weeds are pulling up, once we make the decision, once we commit, because the thing is, we are always consciously creating. So right now, you and I are both consciously creating an amazing conversation, right? Mm-hmm. So if you think about that and you ask yourself, okay, what do I consciously want to create? And this is not to also mask feelings or suppress feelings, because that's what I was doing for years.
Well, just gives them more power, right, Kelly? It actually, the more you resist them, it actually gives them more power to create more weeds inside of what you're creating. Yeah,
exactly. So it's like, be with the feeling, release the feeling, right? And we don't want to sit in our ish, right? And I like to say, like, limit the downtime on that, right? So if it's like, okay, if I'm in a depression for a week, can you be in a depression for 3 days? Or if I'm in a depression, because it's like a bad day, right? Like, people are like, oh, I'm having a bad day. You could change that. You could have a bad hour. You could be a bad moment. You could be, right, bad maybe 4 hours, but you can shift, right? Even when my grandmom recently passed away, and someone would consider that, oh, that was a bad day. Now, like, or some of the really challenging days leading up to her death, one could say like, oh, that was bad. That was a tough day. But it's like not, because it was like, oh, there's miracles in the moments. And are you open to that? So it's kind of like the Matrix. It's like you decide which fork in the road you can really even like sit in your, you know what, or you could decide, you know what, I'm going to make another decision and choice here. And we always have that power. But sometimes, right, and this is what I found for myself, oh, I know how it feels to suffer and be in pain. So that feeling's really familiar, because for years, like I know how to not feel good, or I know how to be in depression, or I know how, right? And it's like, oh, well, that is like, even though it's painful, it's safe and it's familiar, because I've been activating and I've been like with it. But the unknown of saying, okay, I don't really know, like, what if I am happy all day? Or what if I really tap into my joy more and more each day? What is that going to do, right? So it's like the unknown. And sometimes, and that was a very true at one point for me, like, what is the unknown? Like, what does that even feel like? I'm not used to it. Like, it's scary. And that's just fear, right? And that's just like evidence, but you get to choose in every moment.
Absolutely. I love what you brought up, and I heard it brand new this time, and I'm so going to steal it. If you have you ever seen the movie The Secret Garden?
No.
Oh, okay. So you got to watch it. It's an old movie and it's phenomenal. And that's for the whole audience, right? If you've not seen The Secret Garden, got to watch The Secret Garden. And I love referencing gardens, right? And what are you creating in the garden? And so I love what you said as far as some of these thoughts. And to be clear, because I am clear, it's not necessarily like it could be a sad thought and you're very empowered around the sad thought. So I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about the ones that are disempowering, the ones, like you said, would put you into like getting stuck and being depressed and shutting down, so to speak, basically, right? Mm-hmm. So I really loved your analogy around the weeds. Yeah. And as like really being able to just kind of look, is this thought I'm having right now a weed or a flower? Yeah. And do I want to prune the flower or do I want to pull the weed? Right. Mm-hmm. So I really love that, because it keeps it about gardening and, you know, and it keeps about what you're at. What are you creating out here in here? Because everything out here gets created here first.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Your inner state, right? And sometimes it's jarring for people. Are like, oh, that's a mirror, right? Your inner state is dictating like what you're seeing on the outside. So like what is going on in the inside. So yeah, it's so powerful. And since you are always creating in every single moment, you can then say, okay, how do I want to consciously create? Like who I am being, how I'm showing up, what I'm doing, like all of that. So it's really powerful. And some people are like, oh, that's a lot of pressure. Not really. Like you just take it it's a moment by moment, right? Decision.
It's, you know, I like to help people understand. It's like learning anything. When you start out, you're going to fumble and fumble. You fumbled, like to your point, you fumbled and fumbled when you learned how to walk. And now you don't even think about it. You know, there's the 4 stages of consciousness. You're going to go through them. Some you're going to go through fast. Some you're going to go through slow. Some you're going to backtrack. It's okay. It's the journey to that unconscious, conscious state where it becomes a part of who you are. Yeah. Right. And then, and the key is to be doing it with, at least I like to say, one other person. Mm-hmm. And I clearly hear that you would be a great person for people to do it with, because you're masterful in it and you actually coach people on it. That they've got someone listening for them, like the parent with the baby learning how to walk, you know, just as, again, like your, the different distinctions in the different rooms, so to speak, but where someone can be cheering them on as they're going through those different four spaces. So
yeah, it's so important. Like whether you have a coach or a mentor, and I always tell people, get into community, right? Get into the people, like who do you admire and who do you want to become, and get into those spaces. Because like you said, the garden, the soil, right? The sunlight, the water, it's so important, right? If you're like, oh, if you're in a, right, even in a garden that's like, it's okay, the soil's not that great, the sun, you know, sun doesn't really shine over here. But then there's another community or another garden, right? They're like, wow, the soil's really rich, right? The sunlight's always here. So it's there's also a difference in like where you place yourself, because your environment is so important, and who you surround yourself with. And even environment, okay, just say that it's not, you maybe can't find the environment, right? Maybe you're in the stage of in between. Okay, then what are you consuming on all levels?
Right.
Podcasts, YouTube, like literally brainwashing yourself, or like what are you watching? Like, are you watching the news? I haven't watched the news in years. Like, it's just like, okay, like what are you exposing yourself? And you can be very highly, intentional about that.
Yep. Agreed. I love it. So Kelly, because I want to make sure we cover all the facets of you, which you are a multifaceted diamond for sure. What would you say, like, who would be the people out there that you're like, hey, if you're this person, they would like run, don't walk to my break the ceiling coaching? Who would those people, who would be the best people be for that?
Yeah. So they're female founders that are already successful, right? So they're already successful. It's like, okay, but there's every next level of evolution. That's why it's like, okay, shatter your own glass ceilings, because there's always another layer, right, of uncovering. Kind of like a diamond, right? There's always a different like shine or different facet, or like, oh, the dark, like it's like, oh, like there's so many different parts. So it's the woman that's already successful. It's the female founder. I work with executives too. And it's like everything looks great on the outside, but it's like, okay, I'm not, or it's like, I'm not, this way here, I'm not getting there fast enough. I want the results now. What's going on? I'm stuck or stagnant, right? Or I want like to expand to a whole nother level. Right. So usually with these women that I coach, it's not like this whole like burn your business down. It is like the 1% shifts that they're already successful. They're already doing something, or they want to refine or realign certain things. So that could be, bumping up their confidence, right? Okay, if someone's a speaker or a coach or whoever, and maybe they spoke in front of a room of 500, how about 5,000? How about 10,000? How about 50,000 people? Right? So it's like, oh, okay, it's just we're turning up the dial a little bit more, because it's really like expanding, right? Because we're all here to expand and grow and create change, because we're all going to die at some point. So it's like, okay, what do you want to leave your legacy? Like, what do you want to do before you die? And that's why, I mean, it's a very, it's a very morbid, but it's like, okay, you're on your deathbed. What are you looking back at? How do you want to be remembered? And I have my clients do this. I have them write their obituary, their eulogy, like all that, because it really puts it in perspective. So that's what we're working on. And it's also like when you brought up wealth, it's having them make more money easily and more in a fun way and free. Because this is the thing, what I realized is you want what you want because you want the feelings that are associated with that. So you want the car or the partner or the spouse or the more money or the multi, billion dollar business, or you want the exposure, you want to speak on stages, you want whatever you want. You want the family, you want the children, you like whatever it is, you want that because you want certain feelings of what that thing or what those things bring to you. So it's like, and the secret is, can you feel those feelings now? Because that's what collapses time, creates the quantum shifts, calls it in, because you're actually calling and creating in by you already living in the it's already done, right? Because it's already out there, right? The stages with 10,000 people, 50,000 in the audience, the multi-million-dollar businesses, the perfect spouse or partner, families, all that, it's already there. So it's like, who do you need to become to step into, right, that like vibration? I'm going to get a little like, right, little vibrational here, but who do you need to become? Because it's all available to us.
Absolutely. Kelly, and so I'm really clear, the people that you work best with are the ones that are already successful, and they've hit their stride, and and to your point, they've butted up against their glass ceiling. what would you say, and or where would you send the people that are in the audience that are like, well, I'm just thinking about, starting something, or I'm just thinking about taking something on. What do you have any recommendations for those people that are just, starting to play in this realm?
Yeah. So I would say they're not just starting to play. So what I like to do with those people, and it's not like I don't take those people on. And sometimes when people, like, if we're not a fit, right? Coaching is very personal. It's like I refer out, or I say, hey, go look at this program or this mentorship. For those people, and it's for everyone, I want you to think and become like an FBI agent, because you all got to this point when you're watching this or listening to this. You all got up to this point. Like, you've done very much successful things, whether you know it or not, intentionally or not. To get up to this point, you've done something really, really well. So whether that was managing your emotions, or maybe your discipline, like whatever the characteristics are. So I like to tell people, because a lot of people, like even this imposter syndrome, or even people thinking, oh, I don't know if I could do that. It's like, yes, you can, because you've done hard stuff before, and you've done like very challenging things. Maybe you've gone through deaths, right? Maybe you have been a caretaker. Maybe you've done like some really hard things. So I always tell people to find evidence, right, of the things that you've already gone through up to this point, whether they're successes, whether they're accomplishments, whether they're ways of being. And you want to, again, remind the brain, because the brain deletes and distorts, right? The wins, the successes, all of that. And sometimes it's like, oh, but we remember the failures, or we remember the not so great times. So I always tell people, go look back, and it's like, create a list. I don't care what you call it, brag and boast list, accomplishment list, wins list, whatever. And to celebrate that every day, and to be in gratitude every single day and if you can't find anything to be grateful for, it's like, oh, the air in my lungs right now, that's keeping my heartbeat, that's keeping me alive. So you could always find gratitude, and to tap back into that, and then also find evidence in your life that has brought you up to this place.
It's really beautiful, Kelly. And I'm going to really drive that home for the audience. So for those of you that might have listened to Kelly as like, oh, she's someone that I go to when, right? I really love, Kelly, how you broke that down. And guys, sit down and create your success list so you can really get grounded in you are already a success. No kidding. Right here, right now. And I would just throw in, Kelly, if you're okay with it, that if you can't come up with that list, if you're just staring at that blank paper and you're like, I don't see anything, then go. And I love the thing that you said about become an FBI agent. So then go out and interview at least 20 people, at least 20 in at least 4 areas of your life. So not all in one area, and ask them, what do you think that I am highly successful at? What do you think and I like this question, what do you think I'm gifted at? What do you watch me do that like I take completely for granted, but you're like, man, I wish I had an ounce of your ability to do that. Right. And so people ask those key questions of at least 20 people in at least 4 areas. If you can't come up with your own, and I'd say do it anyway.
Yeah.
You're already a success, and you're already inside a glass ceiling, and give Kelly Lynn a call.
Yeah, they could do it right now. I mean, I did it whenever I'm in these like coaching masterminds myself. They're like, go do it. I'm like, I've done this exercise before. And that's another thing, not being afraid, right? Beginner's mindset, and not being afraid to be like, oh, because sometimes like, oh, well, I heard that before. I know what to do. Mm-hmm. Guess what? We all know how to lose weight. Are we at our ideal weight or our ideal health, right? Like, so we all know the things. So It's like, okay, how can you become beginner's mindset? And sometimes it's not the thing that you know, it's actually like, are you actually implementing it? Are you taking action on it every day? Because we all know we need to drink a lot of water. We all need to stay hydrated. We all know we need to move our body. We all know the things. And yet, like, are you actually doing it?
Yeah. That's really great. That's really great. Kelly, I'd like to switch gears. I really want to, unless there's something more specific that you want to cover inside of the the coaching. I'd love to hear more about the imperfect. Let me get this right. Perfectly Imperfect podcast.
Oh yeah.
I love this. Would share more with our audience about that, please.
Yeah. I started podcasting even before that podcast with the co-host, and we did interviews, and oh my God, they're still out there. And I'm like screaming into the, oh, they're horrible. But it's like, oh my gosh. But then I always really loved podcasting. So we only did that podcast, me and the co-host, for a season. And then I was like, oh, I want to still do podcasting. And she didn't really want to. And so I was like, I'm just going to do a solo cast. So I'm like, what do I want to call it? And so I was like, Perfectly Imperfect, because I came from the fashion industry, came from Wall Street, like, and high achiever, oh, everything has to be perfect and all put together. I'm like, you know what? Like, no. And so it's a solo cast. I don't do any interviews. And it's just literally me riffing and talking about different client stories, experiences, even my own evolution on all different topics around wealth creation, embodiment, money, how to create money, how to build your business, confidence. It's just anything that is like tried and true. My experiences, I used to work with horses, like with clients, all different things. So you'll see I think we're almost at like episode 300. So every week I've done just a solo cast. And so you'll see, and I even go back, I'm like, oh, like my own evolution of like, oh, when I first started the podcast. So it's really, in the beginning, I was like, I'm just gonna have fun with it. It was a passion project of mine. And now today, it literally, it brings me clients. I've gotten speaking events from people finding the podcast. I've gotten literally like teams of people hiring me. So it's really, and I don't have advertisers. I don't directly profit from it. So it's really an indirect part of my business, but I just have a lot of fun. It's more of like me giving back.
Sounds fantastic. Now, Kelly, can they access those podcast recordings through your website, or do they need to go?
Yeah, it's on Apple. It's on like a couple other platforms, but if they just want to go to my website at kellylynadams.com, they can listen, or it's definitely on Apple and a couple of other platforms.
Fantastic. What if something, because you said you have 300. So if someone were going there and they could only watch like 3, what would be I don't know if you happen to know them by now. Like, are there 3 that like, and maybe by title, right? That you're like, oh, I would want people to really listen to this one, and this one.
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. I don't know. I mean, just whatever I think tunes in, whatever they feel called to. I mean, I love them all. And again, there was I was in different seasons of my life, and I do it every single week. So the one, just because I was talking about horses, like I talked about what I learned from working with horses and how, working with horses is really important, especially when you're growing your business and in life. So like, I remember that one. I don't know,
what episode number is that, Kelly?
I don't know.
Okay. Do you know the title?
No, but it probably has the name horses in it.
Okay. All right. You know what? So the audience, the ones that know me know I am very much into horses. So I'll track that one down for you, audience, and I'll make sure we get the number in the, wherever Dorothy puts everything.
Yeah, because I think it just depends. Like some people will because some of it now is a lot of business, focused. Mm-hmm. So you'll see kind of the evolution of my own journey of what I was talking about, what was present for me. Because I always really tune in and be like, okay, what do I want to talk about this month or this, and really just go with what's coming up, like for me and in the business and for my clients. So it's truly like not really, it's
organic. It's organic.
Yeah, it's totally organic. Yeah.
It's an organic garden of some of the greatest collections. So we can go in there and find all the different flowers in there. That's beautiful. That's fantastic. Well, Kelly, what I'd love to, the third thing that I feel like the audience is really going to want to hear about is, Wall Street, the fashion industry, all these different, like, get us a little bit behind the scenes, for those of us who have not had, the opportunity to spend 20 plus years in those industries, what's some kind of fun facts, that most people don't know about those different industries?
Yeah, I don't know about don't know. They probably know, but yeah. So Wall Street was fun. It was less than a year because I was like, I got to get out of here. Like, what did I say? Because in college, I'm like, I just want to be in New York. I want to be on Wall Street, and I want to make a lot of money. And so, yeah, it was great. I mean, the people were great. I worked really hard. I was getting car services home. And I wasn't really, I thought I was really into like, the numbers and the whole, like I was more into the Wall Street vibe, like, the commute of going to Wall Street and like, but I wasn't really into the work. And I was like, oh, this is not so like perception, right? Because everyone's like, oh, it was like coveted Wall Street, and I'm like, yeah, and not a lot of people are happy. Like, what is going on here? Like, I don't understand. And I was like, what? So I did an internship with a stockbroker. That was really fun, but I was more on like the investment banking, like asset management side. So yeah, I wasn't on like, the stock exchange or anything like that. That's a lot of energy, but there was still some energy. So yeah, I would say, but I will tell you this, right? And people know this, that you work hard, but you party hard. So it was like work and then hardcore happy hour until, all hours of the night, and then get back up at like 6 or 5 a.m. Like, these people aren't sleeping. This is crazy. So I left without a job, actually. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I left without a job. And then the fashion industry, oh my gosh, there's so much. We don't even have some time for the fashion industry. So there was positions that were exactly like Devil Wears Prada, the movie. So I'll say there was positions that I had that were like that. And I wasn't an admin. I was actually like in finance and strategy and HR. And so that was interesting. I definitely would cry in front of my bosses. Some bosses would look at my shoes before my face. But
Amazing.
it was all great. But some experiences were amazing, right? I got clothing allowances. I could travel. It was like every fashion girl's like dream job. And like some of the people were really amazing. And then some of the leaders were really incredible. There are some leaders that are now and, still with the companies and with bigger companies. And it's like, wow, I actually got the opportunity to learn from these people very closely. Yeah. So even when I was in it, it was fun, but it was like a love-hate. But I wouldn't take anything away from it. But it's, everyone is like into the clothes and, the perception and sometimes it is perception. It's like, okay, what's behind the scenes over here?
Yeah, nothing. Sometimes there's nothing, right? And
sometimes people really love it, but then sometimes it's like, oh, like that's how you do things, or oh, like you're not really happy. Sometimes people are happy, right? And it's demanding. It definitely, the fashion is very demanding, fun as well, and rewarding too. So it's the same thing. Like people think it's like, oh, this big like, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
Yeah. Would you say it runs at the same pace as Wall Street?
Yes and no. Like it's different. So it's and I think it depends like where you are in the fashion industry. Like I was like running with the executives, right? So it was a lot of politics and how to function and how to pitch yourself. And it's really like kind of like Wall Street in a different sense. And now it's great because when I pitch to corporations, like I know exactly what they're looking for, what they ask, what they want. Like I know the whole, because I was on the other side.
Yeah.
So exactly. It gave me, but when I was in it, I would cry on my bathroom floor. Like some bosses were just, they really strengthened me. And I was like, why is this happening? I was in victim mentality. Why is this happening to me? I was like, oh, like I was, I had so many different experiences within 20 years of like humiliation, gaslighting, like all the things. And I'm like, why is this occurring? And I'm like, oh, now I know, because now I know I'm so much stronger, more resilient. I can coach people through that. So it's the biggest blessing. And that's why I tell people, like, if you think you're going through like a storm right now, it is it's for something. And there's always an expiration date, to it.
Amen. Amen, Kelly. To piggyback on that, and really make sure the audience hears this clearly. When you find yourself in a conversation that is, why is this happening to me? I love to tell people to immediately turn that over to what is happening for me, right? And really discover. And if you can't see anything, whatsoever, then again, ask someone